have 16 people now actually in the event.
No, I can even tell you more, Marcus, that Facebook numbers are not realistic numbers. And also the fact that this event was changed from the 4th of May till now today. That's why the live numbers are less. So secondly, we have also competition with
European conference.
Good. So it's normal, Marcus. Don't worry. By the way, this is recorded now live.
I'm not worrying about it. Yesterday with the debate, by the way, that was couldn't log in. I noticed the debating championship.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah. It was cancelled. We were only 3 people there. So.
Okay.
Don't worry about that, Marcus. Things happen. So are you if you want, you can still participate at the European Congress conference part. Anyway, don't worry. Enough opportunities. I hope you're ready because I'm going to start now. So Derek can do his business networking and of course the little ESEX word. Good. Hello, I'm your host Peter van der Velde and project leader of this JCI Change Your Game 2020. Before we start, some house rules of this webinar. The cameras can be on or stay turned on. Questions can be written in the chat during the speaking time, or you can use a reaction button. If you're having a technical failure during this webinar, don't worry, you can zoom in with the same link. This project is founded as a tool for our members to deal with change. Maybe like you or your business were hit by a lockdown. What is certain is that the crisis will have more and more a gigantic impact on our game we were playing. So it's time for a new one. With this project, we give confidence that change can bring a positive narrative if we create that change today. Who are we? Well, JCI is an international NGO with more than 200,000 members worldwide. The organization provides development opportunities to 18 to 40-year-olds in business, community, internationalism, and trainings like this project, JCI Change Your Game 2020. JCs are trained in an organization to deal with change and to become leaders in the world we live in today. Therefore, I invited Derek Reilly. The oldest border in history is a sexual border between men and women. Do ask yourself these questions. How much business do you generate from networking? Do you communicate with the opposite sex effectively? Could you improve? Would you like to read between the gender lines? Finally, help is here. Learn the secrets to uncover a new edge for your business, the power to effectively talk business and successfully network with the opposite sex. This workshop combines behavioral, communication, and personal interaction skills to increase your profits. Who is Derek Reilly? As a symbol of change, we managed to convince Derek Reilly, director of the European Conference 2020 and head of his sales team at Indeed, to give trainings about business networking. Over the last years, Derek and his team were working to build a great conference in Dublin, but then came Corona. They could shift their minds and now are organizing a full online event. So I would like to propose you this webinar, Business Networking and Sex by Derek Reilly. Derek, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you very much for all the great work you've been doing with Change Your Game. Good evening, everybody. As Peter was saying, my name is Derek Reilly, and I'm going to introduce myself properly in a second. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Peter, would you give me access to share the screen when you get a chance? So what we're going to talk about this evening is business networking and sex. And the sex part is between the genders, male and female. And what we mean by that is people who have identified as male or female. I appreciate some people don't identify with either gender, and there is gender fluidity. And so I respect that as well. So in the context of this training, it's people who have identified as male and female, and I'll cover where we got the data from. So let me just share my screen. So, who am I? Derek Reilly is my name. I originally come from the west of Ireland, and I'll show you that in a second. I've set up a couple of businesses in my past. I had a video rental store. For those of a certain generation, you may not know what a video is. And then we had DVDs for a number of years. I also had a printing business, a real estate business, but now I'm no longer self-employed. I work with the large employment website Indeed, which I'm sure is in each one of your countries. I used to be in the fire service for 14 years. I got up to the level of sub-officer. I really enjoyed that because it was working with a group of people that you had to rely on with your life. And I've taken that into other aspects of my career. I worked with BNI, Business Network International, and this is where this workshop developed from. I worked with them for 9 years, and they've given me the access and the usage of this information. I've been with JCI since 2011. I've been lucky enough to be local president, national president, and also a European Development Councillor. And also I'm now acting as the Conference Organizing Committee Director for European Conference 2020. A 6-year journey that, as Peter was saying, changed from bringing everybody to Dublin to now having it online. I'm a trainer and instructor. I have been with BNI, the fire service, and also JCI. And as I said, I'm now working with Indeed, the world's #1 job site, and I'm the team lead there for the last 4 years. So where do I come from? Hopefully you know the European map, and you can see Ireland on the left-hand side. Where exactly in Ireland do I come from is right on the west coast. A very, very small town and village called Balmullet, and the nearest cinema is 1 hour away. So 1 hour away and having a small community, the importance of networking is huge. My family business, we have a business for nearly 40 years. So understanding the importance of networking, whether it be with men or women, it doesn't make a difference. You have to treat everybody right and with respect, because if you don't, you lose that business. So the outcomes from this workshop, how to generate more business through networking, how to make networking more effective for you, in a networking environment, how to get in and more importantly, out of a conversation. Sometimes you're at these networking events when we were able to move around outside, and we will be back to that at some stage in the near future. And I'm looking forward to answering questions as to how to get in and out of conversations with different people at that networking event. And then how to make networking more fun and effective at the same time. So they're the 4 outcomes that we're looking to have from this workshop. It should take between 45 and 50 minutes. There will be interaction. I will be asking you to put into the chat box. We will be doing some polls, but you will be happy to hear there will not be any breakout rooms. So sit back, relax, get a beer, have a gin and tonic, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, and hopefully you'll enjoy the journey. So Mel Kaufman talks about networking, and she talks about it being networking and selling are like oil and water. So when you're running an engine, you need both, but you need to keep them separate. So when you're networking, you're not selling. And when you're selling, you're not networking. So you need to understand the difference between I'm going to this event to network or I'm going to this event to sell. So what I want you to do is find the chat box on your Zoom, and I want you to answer the question, what is networking to you? We're going to give you 90 seconds for you to participate in this exercise. I don't want you to Google the answer, but just for yourself, what do you think networking is? If you could type it into the chat box, and I'll have a look here, and also Peter will let me know as well. I can see the chat box now. So what is networking to you? So if you can type it into the chat box. Thank you, Alona, and welcome from all the way from Wigan. Building professional relationships. Thank you, Coach Mary KM. Connecting with others, very good. So what is networking to you? If I said we're going networking tomorrow evening, thank you, Bart, meeting people, establishing new contacts. Thank you, Jovita. Diane, networking is connecting new people, building relationships with them and creating opportunities. Thank you, Diane. Lucy, thank you very much. It's all about connecting. So the definition of networking is a marketing and business development function. It is building your circle of contacts who not only know you, but are also willing to help you because they know that you're willing to do the same. So it's very much, it's not about the size of your LinkedIn contacts. It's not about how many phone numbers are in your book. It's about people that know that you want to help them and that you know they want to help you. So there used to be an old saying of, it's who you know, and then it was how you know them. But now it's really boils down to how well you know them. It's not what you know, it's who you know, it's how well you know them. So when we talk about that, everybody has a close circle of people that they know really well, of 250 people. And if you can influence those 250 people in the right way to know, like, and trust you, and then they can talk about you to their 250, you have that multiplier effect. So whether you're in business, whether you're building your professional career, it's all about creating that personal brand that when somebody talks about you, so somebody talks about me, somebody talks about Marcus, somebody talks about Diane, and your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. And by networking correctly, that will help build your brand. And networking is so, so important. And that's what we're going to talk about this evening. So specifically this workshop, we're talking about business networking and sex. Where do we get the information from? So it was a study done over 12,000 responses. We did it over 4 years and it was worldwide. So it's not just Europe. It's not just all men, all women. It was global. So a huge data set. So for our first poll, Peter, if you can ask the question, so far in your career, how important has networking been to you? Or how can you, would you say that networking has contributed to your success? So Peter, if you can put up the first poll to the audience and we can get some answers. Has networking played a role in your success? Yes or no? So the question on the poll, has networking played a role in your success? Thank you very much. We asked the same question to 12,000 people that when we did the study of this book as well. So I'm interested to see from the people on this call, 23 people, how many people can attribute networking to the success. So the results, drum roll, please. 100% of people on this call. So straight away, you're sitting there thinking, I'm spending an hour listening to this guy from the west of Ireland. Think about all the other people that are on watching the TV, drinking beers, not investing in themselves. So the importance of networking, thank you so much for feeding that back. So when we did it, we had not 100%, but not quite far off. We had 91.4% of those 12,000 surveys said that yes, networking has played in the success, in my success. So we really need to think about, okay, if this is so important, how am I upskilling myself? How am I improving myself? So when we were asking the questions for those 12,000 people, there wasn't really much difference between men and women, to be quite honest. It doesn't, you know, if you're in business, whether you're a man or woman, it doesn't make much difference. But when we start asking some certain questions, there was a slight difference. Women complained about men behaving badly. So if there was alcohol involved or if it was a late evening of exercise, and then men were complaining about women dressing too provocatively. So both parties, both genders have to be aware of how they're perceived by the opposite sex. Dress appropriately, men and women both behave badly as well. But 98% of men behave well. I'm sure 98% of women behave well, but it's the 2% of people that you remember. And then exception becomes the perception. So we need to be aware of how we're holding ourselves in these networking environments, how we're dressing, how we're acting, is it professional, etc. So we asked some questions to both genders, and we're going to start the polls here, Peter. So the first poll is, how have you developed your networking skills? And it was specifically reading. And what I want the audience to answer is, do you think more men or women answered this question? So reading books, which gender read more books to develop their networking skills? So I want you to select men or women in the poll. So we asked which one, so there's a couple of lists down here as to where we find how people bettered themselves regarding networking. So men or women, which one do you think read more books to develop their networking skills? Once you've answered that, Peter is going to give us the results of the answers. Ooh, 40-60, very good. The answer is women. Women read more books to get better at networking. So very good, 60% right. The next question, the next poll, Peter, please. Paul Peter's my production assistant here. Question number 2. How have you developed your networking skills? By going to classes, seminars, very much like this workshop this evening. Which gender do you think went to more classes or seminars to develop their networking skills? Men or women? Which gender sought out networking workshops, seminars, men or women? Peter, if we can have the results. Ooh, getting closer. And the answer is women. Women found and wanted to go, realize I need to improve myself. I'm going to go to a networking class, or I'm going to find out a seminar. So being mentored by somebody. The next poll, Peter. So men or women, how have you developed your networking skills having a mentor, men or women? So having a mentor, seeing somebody that's a really good networker and asking them, is it okay? Would you mind being my mentor? Can I learn from you? Asking those questions. And the answers, 57% women, 43% men, and the answer is women. Women have no problem and asking other men or women, doesn't make a difference what gender. The last question, the second last question, actually being part of a networking group. So like BNI, etc., Business Network International, breakfast clubs, business over breakfast. There's a couple of different networking groups out there where you actually go along to network and build up your business. Men or women being part of networking groups. Who do you think, which gender answer the question? And our answer, ooh, the audience has picked men. The answer is women. So you may have seen all the way along here, we've actually, all of the answers so far have been women. So the last question we asked, both genders, how have you developed your networking skills? And the answer was, I just do it myself. I don't read books. I don't get seminars. I don't go to seminars. I don't get mentored. So which gender do you think do it themselves, don't think they know it all? And the answer, wait for it. Very good, 100%. So I'm loving the smiles. Thank you very much. Yeah, we are very good men, generally, not all men, and this is not sweeping statements, but in the survey, yeah, we didn't want to be told, we didn't want to know, we think we know it all. So thank you very much for those, Peter. So usually when we go to a network event, there are 3 questions that we get asked. What is your name? Where do you come from? And what do you do? So your name is your name. Really, you should be given your real name if you are in business, if you're looking to develop yourself professionally and build your business. So you can't change that. Where you come from, it's a nice question to ask people. And we even had it at the start of this seminar. Marcus was telling me he's from Rotterdam. Diane was telling me she was from Amsterdam. We're asking those questions. It's just, we're wired to ask these questions. The last question is a more important one when we are talking about networking. And it's about, what do you do? And this is where you really need to work on the answer, because that person is going to ask that question once and you need to grab their attention. If it is a boring answer, people switch off or just nod and say yes and move on. So what I want you to work on, and we're not going to work on it today, but I want you to start thinking about what answer will get the other person to ask me, how do you do that? Sorry, what did you say there? So you're catching them off guard. So for an example, I'm a copywriter. So somebody that develops content for print or for online, whatever it may be. So my name is Derek, I'm from Ireland and I'm a copywriter. People either don't know what it is, don't understand it. So rather than a standard title, what we could talk about is, I make you look good on paper. In a networking event, somebody's going to say, sorry, what did you say there? So understanding that it's the same thing, but catching their attention. I'm an accountant. Patricia, my girlfriend, she's an accountant. So if somebody says I'm an accountant, I'm sure there's many accountants on this call. Not that it's a boring profession, but people think it's a boring profession. So they start to switch off. Oh my God, an accountant, this person is going to be so boring. And that's not fair to say because accountants are great. So what you could say is, I pickpocket the tax man for you. Now, let me just clarify. Tax avoidance and tax evasion are two very different things. So we're not going to condone that. What you could say is, I prevent you having headaches in October. Depending on what country you're in, you'll know when the tax year ends for your business. Or you could also say, I stop your cash flow leaking. So my name's Diane, I'm from Amsterdam, and I stop your cash flow leaking. People are going to say, sorry, what? And they're going to actually be really listening. So the last one we have here is, I'm a photographer. Not a bad profession, but you could spice it up. You could say, I shoot your family so you don't have to. And so you're going to catch these really witty ways of describing your profession. And sometimes we've got a photographer as well, and they might do framing as well. So they'll say, I shoot your family so you don't have to, and I'll frame them as well. And so all this kind of fun stuff. So having a nice, funny answer is what's going to make you stand out from the crowd if it is a large networking event. So the importance of business cards. I want you to jump into the chat there, and we talk about how technology is taking over the world, how LinkedIn is the way to network now, and how all this old traditional way of networking is not going to be important. I want you to put into the chat whether you think business cards are important or not, and if they are, why they're important to you. Business cards are a way of identifying who you are, what you do, a way to contact you, all that kind of stuff. So do you think business cards are important? Yes or no, into the chat box if that's okay. We'll just give you 45 seconds for that. Not anymore. Interesting. Thank you, Alexandra. Unfortunately, still important. The poor trees in the environment. I absolutely agree with you. But you can get recyclable cards. You can get cards made from bamboo. You can get cards made from other sustainable products like cotton. It's an easy way to gather and share information. Follow up easily on LinkedIn. Thank you, Alona. Mohammed, absolutely important. Thank you very much. Business cards are important in corporates, especially government. So if you're thinking about doing business with government, thank you very much, Diane. So lots of people, the majority of us are saying that they are important. Some people think they're not. So even if you think that they're not important, even if you think that it is an old worldy thing, we need to remember the people that we're dealing with. And the majority of people think that business cards are important. So having a business card with you is hugely important, whether you believe in them or not, because the other person is used of dealing with business cards, of asking for a business card. And in some cultures, at the start of the conversation, like in the Far East, you will actually be asked for the business card first, so that they understand where you are within that company that they're dealing with, so they understand how much reverence to give you. Whether you agree with that or not, it's just the culture and how you hand over the business card. And there's a whole cultural thing behind it. Also, when you receive a business card, you have to pay attention to it, you appreciate it, and where you put that business card is hugely important. So rather than taking the business card and putting it in your back pocket of your trousers or your jeans.
Webinar going on right now.
Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. And so rather than putting it into your back pocket, making sure you're putting it in on the inside pocket of your jacket, of your suit, or in your shirt pocket, so it's close to your heart. Lots of different ways to develop that and make sure that whatever country you're doing business with, that you understand the business etiquette or the business card etiquette or whatever it may be. We could go into a whole 1 hour workshop as to, should business cards be double-sided? Should there be a blank on the back? What information you could have on them? Should you have a QR code? Should you have your picture on the business cards? Lots of different things that you can think about business cards, and there's lots of different articles out there on the internet. Digital business cards. Many tech companies don't use business cards anymore. Great question, Diane. Digital business cards, yes, I think it's going to be the way it's going to go, where you either tap your phone together, or you use NFC, or you use a QR code, or you just use it over WhatsApp. Absolutely. But because there's 95% of businesses are still using business cards, they still have to adapt. And if you're looking to do business with a traditional business like government or the public sector, they're still looking for that business card. So absolutely, it should move away, the poor trees and the environment and all the rest of it. But having a good business card, a good quality business card, even if it's for yourself and your own brand, with your phone number, with your email, your own domain. It might be your LinkedIn address, it might be your blog, having personal business cards. And you can get 500 business cards for 20, 30 euros. So it's an inexpensive way of extending your personal brand out from your website, out from your online social media preferences. So business cards, important, very important. So with business cards, when you go to a networking event and you collect lots of business cards and you have them stacked up and you have them with the rubber band and they're in drawers and they're around the place, what have you in your hand when you've got those bundle of business cards? Into the chat box, just let me know what you think that represents. So a big bundle of business cards, what do they represent to you? And thank you for those using the chat box and participating. I appreciate it. Potentially useful contacts. Thank you, Marcus. So a big bundle of business cards, and you've collected them over the years. A GDPR threat. Thank you, Alexander. Very important if you're the data controller and what you're doing with them. As somebody has given you their business card, they've given you their contact details. How you store it is very important, digitally or in person. I feel like having a huge network, but no, I know it's not. Very good, Gorkum. You're a collector. Alona, their follow-ups, positioning the brand. I think Alona's hit the nail on the head. All of these business cards, you're remembering, very good, useful context. All of these business cards together, all they represent at the very start are pieces of paper. They represent nothing else until you do something with them. So meeting somebody at a networking event, collecting all of these business cards, having them there, at this very moment, they're just paper. Until you either put them into your CRM, you put them into your database, GDPR compliant, and you start building up that relationship with them. So like Alona was saying, it's all about the follow-up. If you don't follow up with that person, so if I meet Marcus at an event, or if I meet Peter or Alona, whoever it may be within the team here, and I don't do anything with that, and I don't build that relationship, it's nothing. You're stamp collecting, really. So just be aware of that. So we've talked about the importance of business cards. We've talked about some of the difference between men and women. Are we ready to go networking? And the answer is no. So we're going back into the chat box. And so what we need to think about is, what kinds of things do we need to do when we're at the event to make sure that networking is working well for us? So audience participation time, we've gone to the meeting, whether it's a breakfast meeting or a lunchtime wine or lunch, or it's an evening event and we're networking. It may not specifically be a networking event. It may be before a seminar, it might be after a premiere. Lots of different times we're networking. So the question is, what should we be doing at that networking event when we're there? I've got 7 answers here, so I'm wondering if the audience here tonight will pick up on any of the 7 that we will be talking about. So I'll let you know the first one, just to give you an idea. Speak with people, be memorable. Thank you, Christoph. Approach people, ask for intros. Very good. There is no point standing in the corner and pretending to be on our phone. Try to get to know people and ask what are their needs. Excellent, Marcus. That is exactly what I want to hear. Business-wise, yeah, not personal-wise. Thank you, Marcus, for clarifying. Check the attendee list. Excellent, Lucy. That's going to be at the event, but also before the event, which is a great point. Prepare in advance well to be there. What kind of profiles, how to approach them, talk to people genuinely, be conversational, not salesy. Thank you, Mary KM. Connect with people, learn more about them, and try to build up relationship. Excellent. This is exactly, the people in this workshop don't need this networking training because you have the answers already. So thank you so much for being here this evening. The other people that didn't show up tonight, they're the ones that I should have talked to. Figure out which people you want to meet. Selfie for social media after. Thank you, Alona. Alona is all about the selfies. Thank you. So my 7 answers are, if you want to write these down. Number 1, avoid talking about yourself for the first few minutes. Use the word you. So don't talk about yourself at all. Ask them, what do you do? And I've got a list of questions coming in a couple of slides. So talk about them. Do not talk about yourself at all. And people say to me, Derek, if I don't talk about myself, who's going to know what I do, my business? How am I going to generate business? If you're at an event and you talk about yourself for the first couple of minutes, people will realize, I haven't asked about what you do. I haven't asked your name, where you're from, what your business is, all that kind of stuff. And when they finally do ask you, they're ready to listen. So talk about yourself first. Number 2, the questions that you ask, they're the what do you do, where, when, how, the who, what, where, when, how, all of those open questions, not closed questions. So that it's a conversational, like some of us have talked about already. Number 3, ask for permission to follow up. Is it okay? I've got your business card. Is it okay if I follow up during the week? Would you prefer I send you an email? Nobody on this call, all 25 of us, nobody here wants more emails. So how would you like me to follow up? Will we connect on LinkedIn? Would you like me to send you a WhatsApp? I'd love to get to know a bit more about your business and meet you for a cup of coffee. But you're asking, how would you like me to follow up with you? When is the last time somebody has asked you that? You're going to be remembered for asking these questions. Number 4, so that's the first 3. Number 4, act like a host and not a guest. And what I mean by that is get there early, find out stuff about the venue, where the toilets are, where people have to leave their coats, where people go to get a drink. And so when people are asking and you look like you know what you're doing, you look like you're the host. People will remember because they asked you a question, you knew what was happening. So being there on time. Time is hugely important. Number 5, don't push your card or marketing material on people. So you may have flyers, you may have business cards. Don't be shoving it down their throat. You're there to network. Number 6, develop a conversation, begin that relationship, get to know the people. And we've kind of covered this in the chat as well. Be conversational, be genuine. And number 7, like Lucy was saying, if you can, seek out those valuable contacts. Who are the people that you want to talk to? What level of person are you looking to get introduced to? What industry, whatever it may be. So that's at the event. Before and after the event, just remember the things that we need to do. So make sure that you're going to the right events. This is the first thing. So is it the event? Are there all your competitors in the same room? Is that potentially the right event for you? Or where are your customers or your potential customers hanging out? So if you're a wedding photographer, there's no point going to photography conferences and seminars. Go to wedding expos, go to events where brides and grooms or brides and brides and grooms are hanging out, people that are getting married. Think about what type of group am I joining here? Where am I spending my time? The second thing to do before you go to an event is plan in advance. What am I looking to get out of this event? Who am I looking to meet? What time am I getting there? What time am I coming home? So you have a clear structure in your head, what is going on. Number 3, know the culture of the group. So is it business formal, suit and tie? Is it casual, so you're not standing out from the crowd? Sometimes standing out from the crowd is a good thing and peacocking, but visibility, you have to have credibility as well. You can be visible for the wrong reasons. So wearing crazy colored tie or the mad socks or whatever it may be is fine, but you need to remember, what are people perceiving you for? Make sure that you're getting organized when you're getting there. Bring with you what you have to bring with you, that you've got your business cards with you, if you have business cards. So that's all the stuff to do beforehand. And then afterwards, you need to debrief yourself. Was that a good event? Was that a good value? 2 hours? Did it help me achieve my vision, my goal, where I'm going with my business, whether I'm launching my business, whether I'm building my business? And the last one that we've talked about a couple of times already is follow up with the people that you want to follow up with. Making sure that you put them in a list somewhere, GDPR compliant, and you are following up with them. How did we say we'd follow up? I'm going to give them a call next Tuesday. Need to set that reminder up. I'm going to send them an email because they said they wouldn't mind an email. Send them a LinkedIn connection. Follow them on Twitter, whatever it may be. But following up and building that network is hugely important. So now we're starting to get to a place where we're getting to really be networking and think about the importance of it. 100% of people on this call have said tonight that networking is important to them, has helped them, got them where they are. So let's be serious about it. It is a huge part of your professional career and also your business. So transactional versus professional relationship. When we did this survey, one gender leaned towards having a very transactional relationship with people, and the other gender leaned towards having a very professional relationship in the whole business space. So Which one do we think? So for transactional, which gender, they were in, they were out. Can you do business with me? No. Yes, moving on. Can you do business with me? Yes, no, moving on. You can put it in the chat. Which gender do you think that, okay, thank you, Marcus, straight in with the correct answer. I think everybody's going to, yeah, okay. I don't want man bashing here now tonight, thank you very much. Whereas, now, this is not to say that there are not transactional women around there or people that identify as a woman. It would depend on the person, but majority of people in the survey very much so were transactional. Thank you, Lucy. Absolutely. And sometimes you have to be. And we need to remember that if we're dealing with the opposite sex, how do they like to build relationships? So if you are a man and you're dealing with women, it may be that they would prefer to build that relationship over time to get to know, like, and trust. But like Lucy was saying, sometimes some women are a different personality, a different gender trait, and they might be very much, let's get this deal done. Can we do business? And moving on. So really, rather than it being gender specific, it should be what type of person am I dealing with? So whether it's a personality profile, whether it's insights, whether it's all the different types of personality profiles that are out there. But with our survey, it was pretty much transactional were more men, relationship building were more women. So what do women do for longer, but men do more often? An interesting question. I hear you ask. What do women do for longer, but men do more often? There was a direct and dramatic linear correlation between the time spent networking and the amount of business generated. So the more hours people spent networking, the more business they derive from their efforts. So if I ask people in this group, how many hours a week do you spend networking? We're going to go pre-corona, back when we were able to move around, go to networking events, all the rest of it. How many hours a week, or what percentage of your week would you have given towards networking? So you might have said, okay, I generate 30% of my business from networking. Thank you, Alona, 20 to 30%, I presume. It could be minutes, it could be hours. No, I'm thinking it's going to be 2 to 3 hours. Thank you, Shaviq. So yeah, we need to understand that what we put in, we get out. If we're looking to generate business, excellent, Alona, it is your job. Thank you. Oh yeah, 20 to 30 hours, exactly. 1 hour or less. Thank you, Jovita. Gorkum, 25%. So understanding that we need to put a percentage or an hourly quantity on how much networking we put into it. Men went to more network events, but got less results. So men seem to go to lots more things, out and about, shaking hands when we could, getting business cards, but they were getting less results. Women were doing less networking percentage-wise, but were getting better business results from it because they were, majority were focused on building relationships. So we're going to start with this, go into the chat box. Men, and there's 3 words missing there, something, 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 quicker than women. So what 3 words are missing from line number 1 there? Men, what, quicker than women? Make a decision. Thank you, Alona. Men make a decision quicker than women. It's close, but it's not the answer. Any other suggestions out there? Dive to chat. Thank you very much, Gorkum. Approach quicker than women. So the answer for number 1 is men spot business opportunities quicker than women. So they're quicker to see, okay, we can do business together. We could be in partnership. You can buy off me or I can buy off you. Generally, men are quicker at spotting that. Question number 2, men are willing to what for what they want. Missing 1 word there. Ask, ask, ask. I did this training a couple of years ago and somebody said pay. Men are willing to pay for what they want, but I'm not sure what kind of training that person was at. But ask is the correct question. So men are willing to, are more willing to ask for what they want. And the last one about men are much better at not taking what. 2 words missing. That was me. Thank you, Alona. It was you. So men are much better at not taking what. The right relations. Thank you, Mahmoud, sorry. Rejection personally, things personally. Exactly. Men are much better at not taking things personally. Men move on a bit quicker. Sometimes, and some women hold a grudge for years. So if you cross the wrong person, this is man or woman, they will remember it. So moving the genders, women build deeper what than men? Women build deeper what than men? Relationships, very good. Sometimes people put the word holes in there. Women are they build deeper holes than men. Excellent. Number 5, women are better carriers of something. Women are better carriers of something. The answer is not handbags. The truth, thank you, Gorkum. Women are better carriers of. Dun, dun, dun. And the answer is word of mouth. Women speak more words a day than men. If you can build a relationship with a woman, she will go into her network of friends and talk about you because she's just talking more words than a man. Men don't speak as much as women. And then number 6, women are good what? Women are good multitaskers. Very good. Listeners, Christoph. And the answer is listeners. Thank you, Shafiq. Women are good listeners. They want to know, they want to build that relationship. They want to understand who they're working with and who they're around. So thank you very much for that participation. So people like to build relationships with people that they can find common ground with. So like if you're playing cards, getting some similarities is very important. So that's why we ask where you're from. So straight away you can start to understand what that person is about. What kind of hobbies do they have? Have they got kids? Do they drive an electric car? Whatever it may be, to find that connection. We're always trying to find what makes us. So like tonight, the majority of people on this call are JCI members. So straight away, we've got that connection. We could go to a conference next year in Rostock and go on the cruise, and everybody on the ship is going to be a JCI member. So that conversation, you could be sitting at the bar, having a drink, and you know the person that you're talking to, 99% is going to be a JCI member. So having that common ground, so understanding and having a good conversation, and an open conversation to try and understand who that person is. So when people are networking, there are some fears out there. When the New York Times did a survey on anxiety, networking plays a huge part in these fears, because the number 3 fear in this survey that the New York Times did was dying. People are afraid of dying. Some people are very much afraid of dying, but that was the 3rd most popular answer. The 2nd most popular answer was walking into a room full of strangers. People are more afraid of walking into a room full of strangers than they are of dying. And you'll have friends like this. You may be like this yourself, where you'll actually say, I'll meet you outside the bar, I'll meet you outside the restaurant, I'll meet you outside the event. Don't go in, I'll meet you outside, because you want to walk in together. And number 1, and some people have already come to it, is the speaking in public and public speaking. So when you look at networking, they cover 2 of those 3 fears. Now, I'm hoping that the networking that you're doing doesn't cover number 3. It should be number 1 and number 2. It should be, I may be asked to speak. So some people are petrified just asking to speak, might be asked to speak, so they won't go. Walking into a room full of strangers, a lot of people have fear, and they won't go networking because of that. They haven't got somebody to go with, so they'll miss out on that opportunity. And that was the New York Times survey on social anxiety. Rather than you think this Derek's making up this stuff. So body language and positioning when you are networking. So this is what we call a closed 2. The person is facing the person. This is good when you're chatting to somebody and you don't want somebody to come in. But if you're at a networking event and you want people to be networking with you, we need to remember to look at our body language and which way we're standing. So when you're talking to somebody, all you need to do is just pivot on one of your heels. And that starts to become then an open 2, and people can walk in towards you. So when you're standing, you need to think about, how am I standing? How are people seeing my body language? So 3 people, things are starting to get tight now. So we need to remember when we're in those closed 3s, we need to be the person that says, God, we're closing everything off here. Nobody can get into this conversation. Let's open up ourselves so that we can actually get more people into this conversation. So realize how you're standing, because when you're networking, you'll gravitate towards the person you're talking. Closed 4s. This is like a little fort or a castle. Difficult, but make sure that when you're at a networking event, you're asking people, let's open up. And you can see people in the picture here I think they're drinking pints of Guinness, because I am from Dublin. It isn't cups of coffee, they're pints of Guinness. So when you're going into an open four, make sure you're going to either end of the four, yet you're not going up the middle. Hi, I'm Derek, I'm from Ireland. So you come into the end and talk to the person on the end, and then that person should introduce you then to the other people within that group. So now when you look at a crowd, when you're in a networking mindset, you need to start looking at where are the open twos, where are the open threes. Also, when you're walking into that networking room and that environment, look at the person standing on their own. So in the chat box, can you put down why that person is standing on their own, or why you think that person is standing on their own? They're introverted, they're shy, they're waiting for somebody else, they're a timid person, they're observing, they're nervous, they might not see a group in it, all the conversations are closed. So find that person, because that may be your best contact. Where sometimes people walk in and see somebody standing on their own and they think, oh, that person's on their own because nobody else wants to talk to them, so I'm not going to talk to them. So make sure that you're being inclusive and you're bringing people in. You're over here on your own. Do you want to join our conversation? They will remember that. That's where you're starting to build that relationship. So hoping somebody will come to them, exactly, that they're lost because they don't know the people. Great answers. So what would we be talking about if we stated women know what they're good at, men like to brag about it? And this is coming back to the differences in gender again. Men like to talk about all the contacts that they have. They like to talk about dropping names, all the rest of it, where sometimes women get the work done and they just don't talk about it. And we look at this as well within a progression where you hit that glass ceiling, because men will go for the job even though they're not qualified for it, where sometimes women won't. And that's not me as a man saying that about men or women, but there's books written about it, there's groups about it, all the rest of it. So we need to remember the difference when we look at somebody and we think about the networking event, and we can think about the people that we met. God, he was all talk, but I wonder, did he actually get the job done? Or she was very quiet. I'd like to get to know a bit more about that person and build that relationship up and find out how good they are at their business. They didn't talk about it a lot. Let's delve a bit deeper into it. So questions to ask when you're networking. I'll run through them all, and if you want to take a screenshot, you can afterwards. So first basic question is going to be, what do you do? Very simple. But let's get a bit deeper into that. What got you into that job is a great question. What got me into Indeed? What got Marcus into his job? What got Peter into running a fitness studio, a gym? When you start asking those questions about why somebody is passionate and why they got into what they're doing, that's an amazing conversation. What are you working on right now? Are you thinking about new business? Are we looking to change because of coronavirus? All this kind of stuff. These are really good questions. What type of contact is good for you and why? Asking somebody, that's literally asking them, how can I help? What's a good contact for you? Next question could be, who or what would be your biggest contract or client? So asking, what's a really good introduction for you? Are you looking for government? Are you looking for public sector? Are you looking for private sector? All these kind of stuff. You're starting to talk real business networking stuff here now as well. What's your biggest challenge at the moment? And as Marcus had clarified earlier on, in a business sense. So they're the questions that you need to be asking at a networking event. Take a picture of that screen, take a screenshot, and those kind of questions are going to develop that relationship. Really, really good. So when we were doing the survey, we had a couple of survey responses back, and it was a couple in a row from women. And they were saying, oh, I really hate going to networking events. All that happens is men try to pick us up. They're looking to see if we're married. They're asking if we're staying in the hotel, and just really bad. And it was a woman's response, a woman's response, a woman's response. And it was the same kind of feedback that we were getting from the survey. And then the next response was a man. And we were asking, what do you like about networking? What don't you like about networking? And his response was, I love networking because it's a great way of picking up women. And so we have to be careful how this happens, and that the exception doesn't become the perception. So if we're going networking, we're there in a business mindset, and when that's what we're doing, it's not about meeting guys or girls or whatever you're into. So places to network. Women in business groups, men in business groups aren't really as popular. It's usually, and a lot of women in business groups would allow men to join. They are not restrictive on gender. So don't, what am I trying to say? Don't disregard it because just it's a women in business group. Chamber of Commerce, every town and city has them. JCI, Junior Chamber, that's why we're all here tonight. Businesses associations, whether it's your own type of business or the type of client that you're looking to get. Like if you are an accountant and you should really be a part of your own association for accountants, or if accountants are your clients, being part or get maybe advertising at their conferences or getting into their conferences. So there's things called service clubs, Lions groups or Rotaries. They're in nearly every town and city around the world. Referral groups like BNI, online networking, so such as LinkedIn. So there's so many different places that you can network when you're out and about, but making sure that you're networking correctly is the most important thing. So what do women like to do after midday and men like to do in the morning? In the survey that we carried out, we found that women usually tend to network more in lunchtime, afternoon, evening times, and men usually like to do it at first thing in the morning and then get into their day's work. So depending on your target audience, just look at the breakdown of the networking groups and the events that you're going to. My top 10 tips, and we're going to wrap up. So tip number 1, have the tools to network with you at all times. So in the chat box, what tools would be good for you to bring with you when you are networking? So what would you consider an important tool when you're networking? So your smile, thank you, Mahmoud. Very important, be personable. Your phone and charger, thank you, Alona. Business card, your smartphone, business cards, very good. Being open, thank you, Sharif. Sharfiq, apologies. Business cards and openness. I always like to bring a pen as well. A pen is a hugely important thing in writing things down. Thank you, Diane. The smartphone with the LinkedIn app so you can connect straight away. Very good. So a phone, make sure it's charged or bring your charger with you. A notebook, business cards, a pen. So body language. Thank you, Garcon. Number 2, set a goal for the number of people that you'd like to meet out. If they're lost or if they're looking for something, listen and ask questions. Listen and ask questions. My grandfather used to say, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should listen twice as much as you talk. That ratio. And people say, Derek, oh, if I just listen all the time and the other person is doing the same thing, nobody's going to be talking. Don't worry, people like to talk about themselves. So listen and ask those questions and delve deeper. Number 5, don't try and close the deal on the first meeting. Get to know the person, get to build up that relationship. Give referrals whenever possible. So if you can help somebody there and then, I know somebody that I can help you with. I know a really good person that can help you with that problem or that can help you solve that issue. Number 7, exchange 2 business cards. So why would you give 2 business cards instead of 1 business card? And when you hand them over, people will say, oh, sorry, you give me 2. And what you say is, oh, you might meet somebody. Thank you, Shafiq, apologies. You can hand that out to others. I'm always looking for new clients. If you meet somebody that's looking for a good, whatever you are, you can pass on my details and you'll always have my card as well. So it gives people the understanding that, oh, you do business by referral. You're looking for more business, because at the moment when people are talking to people at networking events, how are you? The first thing people say now is, oh, I'm busy. God, I'm so busy. And people think, oh, if you're so busy, maybe you may not want the business. You may not be able to handle the business. Manage your time efficiently. Be there early. Know when you're leaving. Know what time it closes down at. If you're looking to meet 3 people, remember that you may need to move on and get out of that conversation. So lots of different things that we can say to get out of the conversation. You can say, I'm going to get another drink or I'm going to go to the restroom. But if you keep saying that in a conversation, people think there's something wrong with your kidneys. So making sure that you understand, listen, I really want to meet a couple of more people here tonight. It was really love meeting you, Marcus. How would you like us to follow up after this? Is it okay if I send you a message on LinkedIn? Whatever it may be. But you need to set that, I'm here for a reason. I'm here to network. So managing your time effectively. You can write notes in the back of business cards that you collect when you go home or the next morning when you go back to the office. Don't write it there and then when you're talking to them. It's a sign of disrespect. You could put them into your CRM system. There are apps on the phone where you can scan the business card and it'll put it straight into your phone, the details. And the last one then is the most important one, following up. So if you do all the other things and don't do number 10, networking is just a waste of time and money. You have to build that relationship. You have to follow up. The follow-up is the most important thing. So it takes time, it takes effort, it takes patience, but the payoff will be a personal marketing strategy that accelerates the achievement of your goals. That's Cindy in Germany. So they can give to them others. If I can make a note on the business cards, I can ask for permission. Exactly. Top tip that I stole from you: wear your own badge so that you look like a host. Thank you, Ilona. So if you've got badges, and we're great at wearing badges in JCI, make sure that it has your name and it's nice and legible so people know who you are. And when they're introducing you, they can see your name as well. So having a badge is hugely important. And I know Ilona used that as well whenever she's networking out and about. So remember, it's not net sit, it's not net eat, it is net work. There is work involved in networking. We have to be serious about it because it is such a huge part of our business. Do not forget the importance of it, and upskilling, listening to networking podcasts, reading the books, going to seminars. Thank you for coming along tonight. I'm on Twitter if you're interested in networking me online. I'm also on LinkedIn. And if you found the session good tonight, I'd really appreciate a recommendation. But when you're writing a recommendation for me, I don't want it for me. I want you to write a recommendation in two parts. The first part is talk about how we met. I attended an online workshop with Derek, found it very interesting, blah, blah, blah. One line. The second part, talk about your business, so that when somebody goes onto my profile and reads my recommendations, they know what Diane is about. They understand what Marcus is about, whatever it may be. So don't just write a recommendation. I'm not looking for it to build my credibility. I'm looking for it to actually help you in your professional career or your business. So if you've got the time and you'd like to connect with my network, because when I put my recommendations up, people see it. So if you're interested, I'd really appreciate a recommendation on LinkedIn. Thank you very much for that. Hopefully you're enjoying the European conference. As COC director, when I booked this date with Peter, I didn't realize it was going to be during the week that we were running the conference. We have the Dutch party night happening tonight, but I'm happy if Peter wants to open up the mics and unmute people. And if people have any questions, I'm happy to answer some questions, but I really appreciate you after spending 60 minutes listening to me waffle on, do some polls, and also answer some things in the chat. Thank you very much for the positive feedback in the group chat. Peter.
Yes, thank you very much, Derek. Hey, and I see that I blew my virtual background, so...
We're wearing the same shirt, but when we talked first, Peter goes, oh my God, Derek, you're so white. And so I need to get out more. I need to get into the sunshine. I need to get more color. Peter is a great color.
That's true, that's true. Anyway, back on. Thank you very much, Derek. By the way, I have to thank you, because indeed, the 4th of May, we had no clue that will be a digital European conference coming up. And I have to say that Derek didn't ask one time, can we transfer the date or change the date? And I really like that, because that's commitment, and that's how you build also relationship, isn't it, Derek?
Yeah, I think it's about having, you've got to know, like, and trust people. And I've met Peter at European Academy and at conferences. And when Peter asked me would I help with the Change Your Game plan that he had and the sessions that he was developing, because I know, like, and trust Peter, I said, absolutely no problem. And when we said we picked the date in May, and it was all happening with European conference and things were going on, was it going to happen, all that kind of stuff. And we said we better change the date on this. And so we picked the date in the future, thinking it was far enough away, but absolutely. You have to be a person of your word. You have to be able to be visible and credible. And so thank you, Peter, for that.
No problem. And what my experience is, Derek, is if you want to stand out, and it's also about networking, building your brand. If you want to stand out nowadays, is one advice that I experience every day is if you do what you say, you're already like maybe 90% above all the mass. I don't know if you see it also, Derek, but most people now, it's like fluid, you know. They say yes, but then they say no, or they come with excuses. I don't know what's your experience on that, Derek.
Yeah, I think the level of commitment from people is getting a lot lower. And as you're saying, Peter, when you say you're going to do something, you're going to be somewhere, or you're going to help somebody, you will stand above the crowd by just doing that. So if you say you're going to do something, if you're going to say, I'm going to be there at 3 o'clock for you tomorrow, Peter, being there on time, showing that commitment that you can at least hold that agreement, and it's only a verbal agreement, but that starts to build that reputation, and building that reputation as a person that they can count on. So getting those phone calls a year later, oh yeah, you looked after me last year, we worked together and you were really professional. I'm happy to recommend you on as well. Because this word of mouth is what it's all about. Building that word of mouth marketing about your personal brand. And that takes years, and it takes seconds for you to destroy that. But if you have enough good reputation out there, sometimes you're going to drop the ball. Sometimes things are going to happen and you're not going to be able to fulfill your commitment. But if there is enough goodwill there, it should be okay. But yeah, absolutely. I totally agree, Peter.
Okay, cool. Well, actually, maybe while people thinking about a direct question for you, Derek, I can announce that if you want, like, if you have a JC, if you're a JC, and you have a story, your personal story to tell, and then you want to share it to the world, after this webinar, I'm coming with a new project because this online is very addictive. You can, and if you say, okay, this is something for me, I want to share to the world, which is also kind of networking, so people will know you. You can actually also send an email with who you are, in short, what your story is, and send it to peterlovesjci@gmail.com. So if you think like, oh yeah, I want to be on the stage, I want to share what I have, and you get all the footage, the content is for you. I'm willing to help you in my new project because I also changed. This change your game is not for everybody. It's also for me. So it changed me, and I like to do this online stuff. So I will advance in that. So I want that you all participate, and I give you the stage. So peterlovesjci@gmail.com. Just say your in short lines what your story is and what you get out of JCI, and we will give you a stage and spread the world because people need a network like JCI. It can change lives. It's changed my life. I think it changed Derek's life, and I think 90% of the people are here because they experienced a change. So who's up for a question for Derek, networking, or maybe EC related?
Well, I have some personal question because I have experience in IT environment, so it's a very male dominant environment. And I was wondering, so what was your first challenge when you were networking with women in the beginning? Because when I started with men in the beginning, so I had my own challenge because I was wondering how it's for you as a man.
It's a great question. I remember attending a conference, a women business conference, and I was the only man there. And whether it's a men-dominated world or a woman-dominated environment, it can be as bad in both. It's just because there's a majority of men in business or all that kind of gender sweeping statements being thrown out there. And I remember at the conference, there was a competition and I was leading the competition as the only man there. It was a social media competition. And a woman went up on stage and at lunchtime and says, oh, we've got the Twitter competition and Derek is winning it at the moment. We can't have a man win that competition. And that's as bad as a man saying we can't have a woman win in this competition. So women need to be as respectful to men as men are as respectful to women. And we have come across situations like that as well. And it's not about whether you're a man or a woman, and it's a great question. It's about showing respect to the other person. No matter what gender they are, color, creed, sexual orientation, it does not make a difference. It's having respect for each other. And if you respect everybody else and they don't respect you, you know that they're not the person you want to be doing business with. It is all about helping each other, respecting each other, and making sure that you're aware of the culture of the environment that you're in. So hopefully that answers your question. But I always try and treat people like how I would like to be treated, and also how they would like to be treated, because how I like to be treated might be totally different as to how they like to be treated. So treating the person how they want to be treated and understanding that, and you just get that from experience.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's my, I have the same experience with men.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Derek, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
The first in the poll, there were like a lot of questions about who's reading, who's networking, etc. And the answer was always women, except the last one. And my question is, if is that so true, why do we see so many men networking and less women network? Because
Yeah,
in my experience, I see more men than women.
yeah, and even in the survey, we talk about how more men network, spend more time networking, but the women that do get more from it because they're better prepared, they understand, they build a relationship. So, and sometimes women, like the first question, they're intimidated because it is a very male dominated. It looks like a boys' club. It looks like it's just all men in this room. And why would I go in and network with these people? And so I think there's a lot of male bonding going on, and bravado, and alpha male, and I'm the best. And men like that to feed off each other. And that. So I think that's why we get a lot more males in those networking environments. But when women come into those environments, even though there may not be as many, they do better because they are all about the relationship and building, and they are better trained at networking, whether it's reading books or whatever it may be. So great question. Thank you very much. Have we time for one more question, Peter? I know that the Dutch night is going on and people are scooting after that.
Actually, I have a question. Does the culture play a role in this field between a country or another?
Absolutely. Great question. Yeah. And so depending on the country, so whether you're living in your own country, understanding the culture of the networking there and the difference between men and women, and some countries have that right, and some countries it's slightly different. I won't say it's wrong because it is their culture, but absolutely. If you're traveling and you're doing business overseas, understanding the culture of networking is hugely important. And it's difficult sometimes, whether it's a man going into a female environment or a female going into a male dominated environment. It's both ways. So definitely there is huge cultural differences, and we know that unfortunately around the world. So yeah, definitely. But let's all try to have a better networking environment for each other. And so improving that environment by you changing how things are happening so that you're not just part of the same culture, that you're changing that would be my recommendation. Thank you.
Good, Derek, before you close, I have here from Lucy a question about a quote about oil and water.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Let me bring it up. Let me bring it up. Networking and selling are like oil and water. Both are vital for your financial engine, but keep them in separate containers. And Mel Kaufman. So hopefully you enjoyed that, Lucy. Because oil and water doesn't mix. And networking is not about selling. It's about building those relationships. Selling is about selling features and benefits and all the rest of it. You're not going to do that in a networking environment. And people buy people. We've heard this over and over again. So once you've built up that relationship and you get to know, like, and trust that person, you're going to start doing business if there is a business opportunity, or they're going to recommend you to their families and friends and their contacts. So networking is hugely important. And when the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. Like going to the gym. It is a muscle that you have to build up all the time. Thank you, Lucy.
I cannot more agree about the gym, Peter. Derek.
Thank you, everybody, for tonight. I know it's late for some parts of the world. I really appreciate you coming along, and for those that scheduled back in May, hopefully you understand. Peter, I'll hand over to you.
Well, everybody, this was last one, and you're the lucky ones enjoying this. I have already my beer ready for the Dutch night celebrations. Anyway, I have to go to another. Yeah, hoopla. Right, Shafiq, you're ready too. So I would like to thank you all for this evening. It was a busy moments that you're here because I think this can make really an impact, a change in your lives, and that's a whole project about. But if you missed, don't worry, we have our YouTube channel open for everybody, so you can always rewatch it and react and practice it, because practice makes perfect, isn't it, Derek? So I let you all go. Thank you very much to the bottom of my heart and of my team for joining this, for attending multiple times. I just see some people here. So thank you very much. See you in the future. See you in JCI. See you in the world. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Derek. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Derek. Thank
Thanks,
you, Peter.
everybody.
Thank you, it was awesome webinar.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.